What happens when Hollywood's golden girl faces off against daytime TV's sharpest tongue and refuses to back down? Before we dive in, don't forget to hit subscribe to Talks Flair. And if you love stories that spill every drop of celebrity drama, tap like, drop a comment, and ring that notification bell right now. Because this one, it gets intense. The cameras had barely started rolling on The View when the air in the studio began to change. You could feel it, that electric, invisible charge that hums just before a thunderstorm. The crowd didn't know it yet, but they were about to witness one of the most uncomfortable and unforgettable interviews daytime television had ever seen. Jennifer Lawrence walked onto the set with that signature smile, radiant, casual, the kind of smile that says I'm comfortable here. The audience erupted, applauding, cheering. She was America's sweetheart, after all, an Oscar winner, outspoken, funny, unpredictable. But today, something in her eyes was different. She looked focused, controlled, like she was walking into a place she didn't fully trust. Across the semicircle of The View's table sat Joy Behar, seasoned, sharp-witted, and utterly unafraid to cut through any Hollywood gloss. She gave Jennifer a grin that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Jennifer," Joy began, voice smooth as a blade, "we've all seen your interviews. You're known for being, let's say, candid. Sometimes brutally so. Do you ever worry that maybe you're a little too unfiltered?" The audience gave a polite laugh. But Jennifer didn't. She tilted her head, that disarming smile still frozen in place. "Well," she said softly, "I guess it depends on who's asking the question." There it was, the first spark. The other hosts shifted in their seats. Whoopi raised her brows slightly. Sarah tried to keep the conversation light, tossing in a line about how honesty was refreshing in Hollywood. But Joy wasn't letting go. "Sure," Joy replied, her tone dipping into something sharper. "But there's honesty, and then there's saying whatever you want because you think you can get away with it. You've said some controversial things about fame, the industry, even your fans." Jennifer's smile faltered for half a second. The camera cut to her, catching that flicker of irritation, brief, human, real. "I don't think I can get away with anything," Jennifer said, her voice lower now. "I just don't think pretending helps anyone. I'm not interested in being perfect. I'm interested in being real." The audience murmured, that mix of approval and tension that talk shows live for. Joy leaned forward. "Real's good, but when being real turns into being rude, that's something else. Don't you think?" A faint laugh escaped Jennifer, but it wasn't amusement. It was disbelief, the kind that curls at the corner of your mouth when you realize you're not here for a friendly chat anymore. "Rude," she repeated. "You think I'm rude because I don't filter my thoughts the way people expect actresses to?" Joy shrugged, smiling like someone who'd just drawn blood without even trying. "I think sometimes, Jennifer, people confuse honesty with attitude." And just like that, the room went still. You could hear someone coughing faintly in the audience. A camera operator adjusted his lens. Whoopi looked from one woman to the other, her hands folded, her expression unreadable. Jennifer leaned back in her chair. Her tone softened, but her eyes stayed locked on Joy. "You know, Joy, I grew up watching this show. I've seen you go after a lot of people, politicians, actors, everyone. And I respect that. But maybe, just maybe, women having opinions shouldn't always be labeled as having an attitude." Applause. Scattered at first, then louder. The kind of applause that splits a room. Half cheering for the clapback, half frozen in anticipation of what would come next. Joy chuckled, nodding slowly, her eyes glinting. "You're good," she said. "You're very good." "I'm honest," Jennifer shot back. The laughter from the crowd came quick, nervous, uncertain, feeding off the tension that now pulsed between them. It was supposed to be a 10-minute segment about Jennifer's new film, a breezy conversation about empowerment, humor, and Hollywood. But now, every line, every pause, every shift in tone felt like chess moves between two people who refused to lose. Behind the scenes, a producer whispered into the earpiece of one of the hosts, "Wrap soon." But it was too late. The energy in the room had changed too much to pull away. Joy folded her arms, eyes narrowing slightly. "I'm just saying, Jennifer, fame comes with responsibility. People listen to you. When you speak out about things, politics, pay gaps, whatever, you make waves. That's power. But power cuts both ways." Jennifer's expression hardened. "So I should be careful not to offend people by telling the truth?" Joy smiled, but it was sharp. "I think you should be careful not to alienate them." Jennifer inhaled deeply, almost smiling again, but this time it was something else. Something steelier. "I didn't get into this business to make everyone comfortable," she said. And if my honesty makes people squirm, maybe that says more about them than it does about me. The audience gasped. Even the camera operators looked at each other. That was the moment. The one people would replay again and again, frame by frame, across Twitter, TikTok, and entertainment blogs by morning. Joy blinked, and for the briefest second, her expression cracked, surprise, maybe even admiration. But she recovered fast, brushing her papers with a smirk. Well, she said, that's one way to look at it. Jennifer leaned forward, her voice steady, calm, final. It's the only way I know. The applause came in waves, wild, divided, electric. And as the show cut to commercial, Jennifer's expression softened again. But her eyes stayed distant, somewhere else entirely. Because deep down, she knew the cameras weren't done with her yet. The real storm hadn't even started. The commercial break felt like an eternity, a thinly veiled pause where everyone pretended to breathe while the real conversation burned silently between them. Jennifer Lawrence sat motionless at the edge of her chair. The applause had faded, the laughter had dissolved, and the makeup artist hovering near her didn't dare step in. Across the table, Joy Behar scrolled through her note cards with deliberate calm, her red nails tapping against the stack like a metronome counting down to the next round. You could hear the low hum of the audience, that uneasy buzz of people whispering, phones being raised, the faint rustle of fabric. Nobody knew what was coming, but everyone could feel it. The air itself seemed charged, like static before lightning strikes. Then came the cue. The lights flared back on. The music faded. The director's voice cracked through the studio speakers. And we're back. Whoopi Goldberg smiled to the camera, steady and practiced. Welcome back to The View. We're here with Academy Award winner Jennifer Lawrence, talking about her latest film, Anne. She hesitated, glancing subtly toward Joy. About the realities of fame and authenticity in Hollywood. Jennifer smiled again, but it was smaller now. Controlled. The kind of smile that hides thoughts you'd never say on camera. Jennifer, Whoopi continued gently, before the break, you mentioned honesty in this industry, and it struck a chord with a lot of folks here. She gestured toward the audience, who nodded, a few clapping uncertainly. Do you feel like people misunderstand you when you speak out? Jennifer nodded slowly. A lot of people think when a woman is outspoken, she's angry or difficult. But when a man does it, he's passionate or driven. That double standard hasn't gone anywhere. It's just wearing better makeup now. Applause. This time louder. Stronger. But Joy wasn't done. She leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low but edged. That's fair. But, and I mean this seriously, don't you think sometimes your tone adds to that? I mean, even your co-stars have called you. What was it? Intense. The audience tittered. Jennifer blinked, that familiar flash of disbelief returning. Intense, she repeated softly. That's interesting. I don't remember anyone calling Christian Bale intense when he yelled on set. The crowd reacted instantly, gasps, a few laughs, one audible, ooh, from the back row. Joy smiled thinly. Touché. Jennifer's gaze didn't move. I'm just saying, maybe it's time we stop asking women to smile their way through everything. The air tightened. Even Whoopi shifted slightly, trying to ease the mood. Well, one thing's for sure, she said with a chuckle. You're not afraid to speak your mind. Jennifer turned to her, relaxed slightly, but her voice stayed steady. I can't afford to be afraid anymore. You speak your truth or someone else writes it for you. And that was the line that cracked the room open. Applause thundered again, this time louder than before, echoing against the studio walls. The energy was raw, unsettled. Cameras caught the faces of audience members, some nodding fiercely, others wide-eyed, unsure if they were watching an interview or a confrontation. Joy adjusted her chair. You've got strong convictions, Jennifer. I respect that. But I also think when you're in a position like yours, you have to expect pushback. Jennifer tilted her head, her eyes narrowing slightly, but her voice calm. Pushback's fine. Dismissal isn't. You could hear a single clap from the audience, then another, until the sound built again into a wave of approval. Joy smiled, but this time it wavered. You've got some fire, huh? Jennifer's lips curved faintly. I've got boundaries. That line hung in the air like smoke. The producers backstage exchanged glances. This was gold, messy, unpredictable, viral gold. The segment was supposed to wrap in 90 seconds, but they let it run. You could almost see the math running through their minds. Views, headlines, clips, controversy. Then Joy decided to push one last time. Jennifer, she said, her tone deceptively casual, You've talked a lot about not caring what people think. But let's be real, you do, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. A ripple of laughter moved through the audience, small, uncertain, like they weren't sure if they were supposed to laugh or hold their breath. Jennifer paused. Her hand brushed the edge of the table, fingertips tapping once, a small, almost invisible sign of restraint. Maybe, she said finally. Maybe I do care, but not in the way people assume. I care about being understood. Not liked. Joy nodded slowly, lips pursed, the faintest smile ghosting across her face. That's honest. Jennifer looked at her, straight, steady, unwavering. That's the point. Silence. For a full beat, no one spoke. The sound technician in the booth whispered to his colleague, "Is it me, or is it getting hot in here?" Whoopi broke the silence with a laugh, her signature cackle dissolving the tension like rain on dry ground. All right. We've got a movie to talk about before this turns into The View. Cage Match Edition. The audience laughed. Relieved. Joy chuckled, shaking her head. Hey, I can take it. She's tougher than I thought. Jennifer smirked. You'd be surprised what people underestimate. And there it was, the flicker of mutual respect, barely visible beneath the surface of all that verbal sparring. The segment wrapped, the outro music rolled, and the camera lights dimmed. But as soon as the microphones went off, Jennifer leaned slightly toward Joy. Her tone dropped low, almost private, but the nearby crew caught it. I hope you know, she said. None of that was personal. Joy's mouth twitched. Oh, honey, on this table, it's always a little personal. Jennifer smiled. A real one this time, small, genuine, but with a hint of fire left burning behind her eyes. Then maybe that's what makes it fun. The two women locked eyes for a long, quiet moment, the kind of moment that feels like a truce drawn in invisible ink. The audience, now standing and clapping, had no idea they'd just witnessed something that would explode across headlines by evening. The hashtags were already forming in the collective mind of the internet. Hashtag Jennifer versus Joy. Hashtag The View Showdown. Hashtag unfiltered and unapologetic. The cameras cut. The lights faded. The storm, however, was only gathering strength. Because once the clip hit social media, no amount of commercial breaks would contain it. It started as a whisper. A 20-second clip, grainy, shaky, ripped from someone's phone inside the studio. Jennifer Lawrence's voice clear and sharp through the background noise. Maybe I do care, but not in the way people assume. I care about being understood. Not liked. Those words hit social media like gasoline on dry ground. Within an hour, it was trending. By midnight, it was everywhere. On TikTok, edits looped the moment again and again, overlaid with dramatic music. On Twitter, no, X, users fought over it in threads that spiraled into thousands of comments. One side crowned Jennifer a hero, the other accused her of arrogance. The View's official clip went live at 6 p.m., a neatly trimmed version, polished, with upbeat music and laughter over the credits. But the raw, uncut footage was already circulating, and that version told a very different story. Inside ABC's media office, phones buzzed nonstop. Producers scrolled through notifications with wide eyes. This is crazy, one whispered. It's blowing up. Another replied, yeah. And they're picking sides. Meanwhile, Jennifer sat alone in her hotel suite, legs curled under her on the couch, the glow of her phone painting her face in cold blue light. She'd just come from a press junket, cameras, microphones, the usual blur. But now, staring at her mentions, she felt something shift. There it was, the clip replayed thousands of times. People analyzing every breath, every look, every flicker of emotion on her face. She put Joy in her place. Jennifer's got an attitude problem. She's finally saying what every woman in Hollywood thinks. She needs to calm down. She scrolled slowly, her heartbeat steady but her stomach tight. The noise was deafening, even in silence. Her phone buzzed, a call from her publicist, Kara. Don't say anything. Kara's voice came through immediately. Just don't. Let it breathe. Jennifer rubbed her temples. They're twisting it already. I know, but that's what they do. It'll pass. Jennifer looked out the window, at the glow of the city below, glittering and alive. It's not going to pass. Not this one. And she was right. Across town, Joy Behar sat at her kitchen table, a half-empty glass of wine beside her laptop. Her husband was asleep. The only light came from the soft glow of the screen, showing her notifications stacked in endless lines. Hashtag Joy Behar exposed. Hashtag Team Jennifer. Hashtag Joy the Bully. Hashtag Hollywood Snowflake. She sighed, half amusement, half exhaustion. After 30 years on television, she'd seen plenty of storms. But this one felt different. She clicked on a clip, one of the viral edits, and watched herself lean forward, watched Jennifer's icy calm response. So that's how it looked, she thought. Not as playful sparring, not as banter, as a battle. The next morning, every major outlet had the story. Entertainment Weekly. Jennifer Lawrence and Joy Behar clash in fiery exchange on The View. Variety. The View interview sparks debate on women, fame, and attitude. Even political pundits weighed in, twisting it into metaphors about power, freedom, and media bias. And while the headlines spun their stories, Jennifer arrived at another interview. This time, late-night TV. The host smiled, the audience cheered, and she sat there under the lights again, pretending everything was fine. So, the host said with a grin, "You've had quite a week." That View moment, everyone's talking about it. Jennifer smiled, the kind of smile you wear when you've rehearsed it in the mirror. "Yeah," she said. "I guess honesty's still controversial." Laughter from the audience. But it didn't sound lighthearted. It sounded hungry. Behind the scenes, the producers debated how far they could go. Should they mention Joy's name? Should they replay the clip? Every decision felt like throwing another log on a wildfire. Later that night, as the studio lights dimmed and Jennifer's car pulled away, the streets outside were already lit by camera flashes. A reporter shouted, "Jennifer, any comment on Joy Behar?" Another yelled, "Are you planning to apologize?" Jennifer stopped for half a second, looked toward them, flashes exploding like tiny bursts of thunder, then turned away without a word. The next morning, Joy appeared back on The View. The audience clapped, not as loudly as usual. She smiled anyway. "Yesterday was fun, huh?" she joked, trying to reclaim the narrative. "Look, I like Jennifer. She's talented, smart, fiery. We sparred. That's what this table's for. It's called The View for a reason. We've all got one." The audience laughed, but the undertone was uneasy. Then, in a moment that felt almost unscripted, Joy sighed and added quietly, "It's funny how people see what they want to see. You say one thing, they clip another. But hey, if it got people talking, maybe that's not such a bad thing." That clip, maybe that's not such a bad thing, started another wave. Some saw it as smug, others as wise. And through it all, Jennifer stayed silent. Until a week later. She posted a single message on her Instagram, black background, white text. "Women can disagree publicly without one of them being labeled a villain. Let's normalize that." It got 5 million likes in 4 hours. The internet split again, not in outrage this time, but in reflection. People wrote think pieces, reaction videos, Twitter threads. The conversation had evolved from a clash of personalities into something bigger, something raw and cultural. That night, Joy read Jennifer's post twice. Then she closed her laptop, leaned back in her chair, and said softly to no one, "She's right." But even as she said it, she knew the story wasn't finished. Because the audience hadn't chosen peace. They wanted more. Fan edits emerged, dramatic music, slow zooms, captions like two queens. One table. Conspiracy videos claimed the moment had been staged. Talk show insiders gave anonymous quotes about tension backstage. The View's producers debated inviting Jennifer back for a follow-up. A Part 2 interview that could break the internet all over again. Meanwhile, Jennifer kept working, quiet, composed, but distant. In interviews, when asked about The View, she smiled politely and changed the subject. But her eyes, those fierce, unflinching eyes, gave away a truth she'd never say aloud. It wasn't just a moment. It was a message. And yet, deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something unfinished was pulling at her. That there was still one more conversation waiting to happen. The storm had changed shape. It wasn't about who was right or wrong anymore. It was about what happens when authenticity collides with entertainment. When real emotion meets the machine of media. And both Jennifer and Joy, in their own quiet corners, knew it wasn't over. Not yet, because sometimes the silence that follows a storm isn't peace. It's the calm before the aftershock. The morning felt different. A week had passed since the viral storm, yet the city buzzed with the same question on every feed, every podcast, every glossy headline in the checkout aisle. Would Jennifer Lawrence and Joy Behar ever face each other again? Rumors spread fast. Anonymous insiders whispered that the View producers were planning a reunion conversation. Not an interview, not an apology, just two voices meeting again. The internet didn't believe it until the official account posted a single teaser. Tomorrow, Same table. Same time. The post went up at midnight. By dawn, hashtags exploded. Comment sections turned into countdowns. At the studio, crews worked in silence, tension thick as fog. Extra lighting, backup cameras. This wasn't a talk show anymore. It was an event. Jennifer arrived first. No entourage this time, no laughter echoing down the hallway. Just her, dressed in understated black, eyes calm but unreadable. She paused before the doors, hearing the muffled hum of the waiting audience, and whispered to herself, "Let's finish this." Joy came minutes later, coffee in hand, her trademark composure wrapped around her like armor. The producers greeted her carefully, as if one wrong word could tilt the balance again. She smiled at them, half teasing, half tired. "Relax. It's just television." But she knew it wasn't just television anymore. It was perception, redemption, and the fragile art of being human under lights that never dim. The music rolled. The applause hit like a wave. Cameras swung toward the table. Whoopi's voice cut through the noise, steady as ever. "Welcome back to The View. Today's a special one. You all know why." The cheers softened into an expectant hush. Jennifer turned toward Joy. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Joy broke the silence. "Before we start, I think we should both admit one thing. This whole thing got bigger than either of us meant." Jennifer nodded slowly. "Yeah, it did." Her voice carried warmth this time. No edge, no defense, just honesty. "I wasn't angry. I was tired. You ask 1,000 questions about being a woman in this industry, and sometimes it feels like no answer is the right one." Joy's expression softened, the faintest flicker of understanding crossing her face. "I get that. I've been doing this a long time. Sometimes the line between a real question and a provocation disappears under the studio lights." The crowd stayed quiet. No laughter track. No cue cards. Just two women sitting at a table, surrounded by cameras, finding the thread of truth beneath the noise. Jennifer took a breath. "When the clip went viral, I read things that made me angry, and things that made me proud. But the part nobody saw was how heavy it felt. It wasn't fun being turned into a meme." Joy gave a small nod. "It wasn't fun being the villain either." That landed. For a moment, they just looked at each other, acknowledging what millions of strangers had argued about online for weeks. Then Jennifer leaned forward slightly. "So maybe we agree on one thing." Joy raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "That being real on camera isn't easy for anyone." The audience exhaled together, as if they'd all been holding their breath for days. Applause erupted, warm, genuine, not the explosive roar of confrontation, but the slow clap of understanding. Whoopi smiled, leaning back. "Well, look at that. Growth, live on daytime TV." The rest of the segment flowed softer. They spoke about Jennifer's film, about comedy and mistakes and second chances. There were even laughs, tentative at first, then natural, cleansing. When the show cut to its final break, Jennifer stood and hugged Joy. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't for cameras. It was real, the kind of hug that says, "I see you now." The audience rose to their feet. Applause thundered again, but this time it wasn't divided. It was united, cathartic. And somewhere backstage, a young production assistant whispered, "This is why live TV still matters." Hours later, the internet lit up again. Only now the tone had shifted. Hashtag Joy and Jennifer trended with clips of their hug, captions reading "Real Women." Real talk. Opinion pieces praised the moment as the rare on-air reconciliation that felt authentic. Comment sections flooded with gratitude. Finally, a moment of grace. Proof that disagreement doesn't have to mean disrespect. We need more of this energy in media. Jennifer watched it unfold quietly from her phone, sitting by a window streaked with rain. The city below buzzed as always, indifferent yet somehow connected to it all. She smiled faintly, turned her phone face down, and closed her eyes. For the first time in days, she felt peace. Joy, meanwhile, sat in her dressing room, the faint echo of the applause still ringing in her ears. She looked at the monitor showing replay after replay of that final hug and whispered, half to herself, half to the universe, "Guess the storm was worth it." And maybe it was, because sometimes storms don't destroy, they clear the air. Later that night, every network replayed the moment. Reaction videos multiplied by the hour. People wrote essays about accountability, grace, and growth. The chaos had evolved into conversation. What began as confrontation ended as connection. And through it all, one truth remained unshaken. Authenticity, raw, imperfect, human, is still the most powerful thing you can show on camera. So now, dear viewers, it's your turn. What do you think? Was Jennifer right to defend herself so fiercely? Or did Joy simply do what a host is supposed to do? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your take on this story, every perspective, every emotion. And if you live for moments where truth collides with fame, where raw honesty meets the blinding light of the spotlight, then don't forget to hit subscribe to Talks Flair. Because this storm may have passed, but on Talks Flair, there's always another one on the horizon.